In 2020, I was in the worst shape of my life. No hobbies, COVID-induced introversion, and like every good, studious, nerdy Asian girl, I decided to start powerlifting. When I walked into my first gym, the first thing I noticed was, wait, why are there so many Asian people here? If you go to any powerlifting meet in California, you'll see Asians in almost every weight class on almost every podium. So how did this happen? How did Asians, this stereotypical weak and fragile demographic, suddenly break into this niche macho sport? I'm Amy, I'm alive and well here in Los Angeles. Let's talk about this surface level masculine sport and the tiny threads that intermingle it with the Asian American identity. First off, let's clarify what powerlifting is. There are a lot of strength sports out there, like bodybuilding, CrossFit, Olympic weightlifting, and strongman. But for powerlifting, you specifically focus on just the three lifts: the squat, the bench press, and the deadlift. The International Powerlifting Federation wasn't established until 1972. And for decades, it was dominated by Eastern Europeans and Americans. When we think of a big, strong, buff guy, we probably have an image that isn't exactly Asian, because the Asian image we grew up with looks a little bit like this, or this, and even this now. But it's also important to talk about how these stereotypes came into place. There's a lot of nuance here, but to give a cursory summary, the 1913 alien land laws prevented Asian immigrants from owning property. Asian men faced employment discrimination and were barred from many professions, so many took on more traditionally feminine roles, like laundry, cooking, domestic work. The Expatriation Act of 1907, where any American women who married immigrants could lose their citizenship. This made marriage and building a family particularly hard for Asian men, which fed to the emasculated trope. Hence, they were seen as more weak and feeble. And you might think, well, maybe Asians just are genetically weaker. Today, I'm hanging out with one of the strongest guys I know personally.
My name is Matthew Tung. I'm currently a second-year USC physical therapy student. I also represent Hong Kong for Olympic lifting and international competitions.
For people who don't know, like, what is weightlifting and how's that different from like bodybuilding or just lifting weights or powerlifting?
Sure. Classically, you would call it Olympic weightlifting, or specifically testing the snatch and the clean and jerk. Whereas another strength sport like powerlifting would be the more, I guess, like common gym movements you'd see in everyday life.
You tell me from an anatomical perspective, is there like a racial difference?
Well, I think at the population level, most Asians will typically have shorter femurs, shorter arms, bigger torsos. So things like that may not be as advantageous in these sports where you need leverage. Most of the popular American sports favor longer levers. They favor taller people, bigger bodies. So for certain Asians, I would say those sports can be a little more challenging when you're on an even playing field. But in a sport like powerlifting or even weightlifting, if you generally have shorter levers, so like shorter legs, shorter arms, bigger torsos, that's a bit more advantageous to a strength sport. So for example, if you're taller and you're doing a back squat, like that bar, because of how long the person is, that bar is going to be much further from their center of mass than, say, a shorter person with shorter arms, where they probably have a lot more of like a vertical bar path, which means they don't need to work as hard to kind of stabilize the weight.
Is this the reason where the Asian squat comes from?
I would assume so. Yeah, I would assume so.
So while Asians on a population level don't fare as well in traditional American sport, those same proportions become structural advantages in strength sports. And it's not just powerlifting. Asia leads in Olympic weightlifting, diving, gymnastics, badminton, table tennis, and are increasingly showing up in gymnastics, baseball, and even football. So if you still think Asians are genetically weaker, I'm gonna go off a whim and assume 1, you don't actually play a sport, or 2, you've never stepped foot into a gym.
My name is Anthony Brennan. I'm a powerlifting coach out of San Diego.
Anthony is my first and only powerlifting coach. He got me into the sport, showed me how programming works, taught me conditioning, but most importantly, he showed me that I could be strong too.
I started powerlifting about 11, 12 years ago. We do call this the broken person sport.
What does that mean?
I came into this because I got hurt in MMA. I was like, what can I do? And I built myself up doing bodybuilding. And I was like, okay, what can I take myself to the next level? And that's how I ended up doing powerlifting. I needed something to compete with.
Asians have like the stereotype of being like emasculate, right? So it is interesting. When I started powerlifting, I was like, wow, there's like so many Asian people in a sport that's very...
It did shift. Asians tend to be really meticulous, and it's a sport that we can kind of grind at. If we can put our mindset in something, you just keep going and going and going. That's actually explains that's how I am. That's literally how I work. We used to be known as like the nerdy and like the, you know what I mean? And powerlifting kind of shifted that, where we're actually strong, and you have people like Jonathan Keiko and those kind of dudes where like they're actually dominating the sport. So it's like, okay, Asians can do sports.
If you ask any Asian powerlifter in their 30s where they first found powerlifting, they will most likely tell you
Barbell Brigade was the mecca of powerlifting. Like if you're Asian and you powerlifted, you had to go there.
I train at Barbell Brigade, a powerlifting gym created by Bart and Gio Kwan, who I consider OG Asian YouTubers. Bart Kwan documented his own powerlifting and CrossFit journey online, making it more accessible and fun. And he created a no-ego, high-energy space where beginners could train next to elite lifters.
You're gonna do this.
It's pissing me off. People think they could just get into this. And
My bad.
your videos are a lot better than mine.
Easy.
What did you say?
Your videos are a lot better than mine.
Say that one more time louder, just so I make sure I really got that. Say
Bring the mic closer to me. I don't have to scream. My name is Nadeem Hamidi. I am 30 years old and I'm living in Los Angeles. Well, starting with barbell, it was cool because I was a fan of like Bart and Gio since I was like 11 years old. Before, when I first found them, the barbell wasn't a thing. Powerlifting wasn't known to me. I just thought like people just lifted heavy and that was bodybuilding. And there was kind of like a general understanding of powerlifting at the time, but it was super, super niche. When me and Bart first did like our first meets, there was max like 30 people there. That was like a big meet.
Damn.
And it was pretty much like 25 white guys, all huge. You didn't see people like me or especially people like Bart competing. And the first powerlifting meet, I actually met Bart, became cool with them online, started messaging back and forth about lifting and stuff. And then he was like, hey, I'm planning on opening up a gym, like you should come out.
Was it a strategic thing to have the gym in like next to Chinatown?
Being close to downtown was a huge factor for us, and then also having like street parking and stuff like that. At that time, for a few years, we were the only gym. We're getting people coming from all over.
Being community centric to LA
Yeah.
was important. That community vibe made it a destination gym. People visited all over the world just to train here.
Bart Kwan is technically the reason I started lifting when I was like 12. A lot of the Asian community saw Bart Kwan, Han Champion, Icewind Cube. These are all like OG YouTubers. That I don't think you have any like who
I know Bart Kwan, and that's it. If you're an Asian American that grew up in the early 2000s and 2010s, you know that Asian American representation was virtually non-existent in mainstream media, and we all flocked to YouTube to see our culture represented. But visibility also came with enormous pressure. This is a deep pull, but does anyone remember Mike Chang from Six Pack Shortcuts? He was one of the first Asian fitness YouTubers before fitness YouTubing was really a thing. He became the face of Asian fitness for years, who eventually sold his channel and gave it all up. Or 2012 Linsanity. Jeremy Lin had this incredible run with the Knicks. I remember living in China at the time and I felt like Asian representation was hinged on this one dude. When he rose, we all rose. And when he fell off, we all felt that fall. When you're the only one visible, every move you make represents everyone. Jeremy Lin couldn't just play basketball. Every game was about if Asians could hoop. Mike Chang couldn't afford to lose his six-pack or else Asian men wouldn't be seen as buff. That's exhausting.
A lot of the big powerlifters now grew up watching us. And then now you get the kids that honestly don't know who we are, which was kind of like our goal was to like kind of grow the sport.
That's kind of beautiful. Oh my God.
A lot more Asians that get into powerlifting because one, I think having role models in a sport is a super important thing. You know, nobody wants to go into a sport that they don't feel represented in.
I started this video essay with the intent of challenging Asian masculinity, but when I asked my friends about why they powerlift, none of them really thought about it that way. Why do you powerlift?
Oh yes! Because it's fun. Honestly, I just want to wear the singlet. I think it looks really cool.
When I first started lifting, I was going through some major depression. And then I was like, wait, I'm kind of strong. I've always been like, just like that one gay person in the gym. So I've always kind of felt like very out of place. So I literally was like, let me do things that make me uncomfortable.
Our powerlift is honestly probably the most empowering thing that I've been doing for the past 9 years. Stronger than the boy.
Hell yeah.
I'd rather be sexy naked.
And that actually makes me so happy.
I don't think it really mattered whether I was Asian or not. I think it was more the specific sport itself.
I think that's what the next generation of Asian Americans need. Permission to try things because they look fun. Permission to fail without it reflecting on an entire race.
What keeps you makes you stick around for the sport?
Honestly, at this point, even though I'm not as involved in the sport, it's just the people. It doesn't matter what gym, where you're from, what you do, who you are, how much experience you have. People come in this gym and they're able to just work out and have fun.
I like that I could be in the same room as someone who is like breaking records, but we're still just like hanging out, as opposed to maybe a team sport or like another sport. You have to be around.
And that was always my intention too.
I used to wake up at 5 in the morning to go to the gym to train just because I didn't want anybody else to see me because I was so scared. Like I'd say like the lifting community, the strength sports community, whether it's powerlifting, CrossFit, weightlifting, I think they're one of the most supportive communities in the world for any sport.
There's some people that like to be alone, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, I need a spot. I need these people around. I need people to talk to. And
That's so true. I never thought that powerlifting is an individual sport, but it's so community-based and you need a community to support you with it.
It's just everyone's people and you're just building your journey, and that's how I see it as.
Powerlifting is an antithesis to the emasculated Asian stereotype, sure. But I think its success in the Asian American community also comes from the fact that the sport is so nascent. It doesn't have entrenched stereotypes yet. In powerlifting, you're not the one Asian guy. You're not carrying the weight of representing Asian masculinity on your shoulders.
you know, I'm trying to beat the last time I competed. There's always gonna be someone that's just way stronger than me.
The biggest competition of my life that I'm preparing for is the 2026 Asian Games in October. I'm training on my own alongside of, pursuing a doctorate of physical therapy. Even though the sport doesn't get a lot of, public love and public attention, one of the things I hope is to inspire other people to pick up a bar as well and start their own weightlifting journey.
The Asian American experience is this weird tension between collectivist culture and American individualism. Powerlifting somehow holds both. You compete as an individual, but you train in community. And that's the world I want to build outside the gym as well. Be 1% better than yesterday and cheer on the next guy. That's it. It's that simple. Filming YouTube outros are so cringe, but I have to do it. If you are a foodie, get ready for my next episode because I will be doing a food tour around LA. Subscribe for more. I promise I'll be posting every 3 weeks on topics about art, community, culture, and just the tiny threads that connect us all together. See you next time.